Alright, so yet another update on the Bibster. I'm just on a roll here lately, just trying to get a lot done on this thing. Really, I just want to get all the tube work complete, and then I can kind of focus on what the next step is. This project is like a lot of things in life where I just kind of dove in head first. I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do, but I wasn't quite sure how I was going to get there. But I knew that if I just dove in head first, as I kind of clicked off the things that I knew that I had to do, the next steps would kind of come to me as I went. And if they didn't, then I would figure it out. It really started with cutting the body up. I didn't really know what I wanted it to look like until I started cutting the body apart, and then I knew that I was gonna have to narrow it, then I knew I was gonna have to chop the top. Those things kind of came later. I knew this thing was gonna have a tube chassis in it. Didn't know exactly what it was gonna look like or how it was gonna work until I just started laying bars. You know, I kind of, like I said, I had an idea, so now it's just trying to execute on that idea and kind of, you know, each step is one step towards what my final goal is. And that's just to have a badass modern day hot rod. So the first thing I wanted to do is I wanted to tie the roof back together. So where I kind of split the roof with the rest of the car, the measurements that I had took didn't come out quite right. Kind of went over that in an earlier video. I wanted to kind of get that stitched back up so those things weren't flopping around, and I can kind of check that off my list as far as things to do. It didn't take much, just a little trimming, a little fit, trim, fit, trim, fit, till I got just like I wanted it to. Then I just took the MIG, kind of tacked it in there for now. I'd also done some relief cuts up under the bottom side of the roof panel because I had to kind of fold those in. So where I made those relief cuts, I went ahead and kind of stitched those up as well. Once I had the body panels kind of stitched back together in a way where they weren't really flimsy and flopping around, I wanted to put the dash bar in the basically the lower parts of the A-pillars. I had an idea that I wanted to, because I want to drop the tube chassis out from underneath the body once I got it all tacked together so I can final weld it, the dash bar couldn't be full width. It couldn't go all the way over to the body panels themselves because then it would be too wide to fit out through the rockers. So what I did was I made these brackets that kind of attach to the body, and then drilled holes, welded nuts within the tube itself so I could bolt that tube into place, put the lower part of the A-pillars in, welded all that stuff up, and then once I get ready to drop the chassis out from underneath it, I can just undo those bolts. The tabs will stay with the body and the chassis will drop out. And this will actually kind of tie the body in with the chassis a little better, kind of stiffen everything up. I plan to do that in a couple other locations too, but I'll kind of figure those out as time goes on. More than likely, you know, I'll have some like dimple dyed gussets and stuff like that, but not welding those in right now. I'll wait. This thing is going to be bare metal, as I mentioned before, so the body's got to come off. Probably going to have it like sandblasted, and gonna bust the Eastwood SCT out and kind of give this thing a brushed look, which is what I'm going to be after on it. And then once all that is done and the chassis is fully welded, I'll scuff all that thing, seal everything, then I'll put it back together and I'll start adding those little extra pieces. Once I had the dash bar and the lower A-pillar bars all welded in intact and everything, then it was time to move on to the door bars. Now the door bars were a little bit tricky because the bars that are in the floor are just, you know, straight. They're in maybe, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch, maybe an inch in from the rocker itself. And the way that this car is going to be designed, it's so skinny now that I've kind of narrowed it. There's going to be very little room for the driver and the passenger. I mean, like, space is going to be tight. You know, you got the transmission tunnel, which is going to be ultra high on that thing. So the side bars, the door bars, couldn't be on the same plane as those lower bars. I mean, I couldn't just go straight from the top to the bottom, because then I wouldn't have enough room for the driver and the passenger. I had to kind of kick those things out towards the door. And so that's what I did. I ended up putting like a 10-degree bend in it. It kind of goes out near the door and comes back in. And actually gives it a really good look. It actually kind of gives it this like tub look. You know, looks like maybe it'll be easy to slide into and out of. I can actually, when I build the seats, when I custom build these seats, those seats might actually tie into those door bars and it'll just kind of fit the whole theme. So I really like that. Got both sides of that done. The driver's side obviously was kind of the experimental side, where I was going to put the bend, how much I had to bend it, how I was going to notch those tubes to fit properly. Once I had all that done, then I had really the recipe for the other side, and that was pretty easy. Then I could just, you know, reverse everything I did and make the same bar to match for the passenger side. The last video I did, I had a couple people ask about the tools that I used. You know, the digital protractor to get level or to get the angles of cuts, and then this rotation gauge that I actually put on the tubing itself. Both of these can be found in a link that is in the description of every video I make. It basically says the tools I use. That is a list of everything I use in the shop. Some of the stuff you've seen in this video, some of the stuff you didn't, but it kind of fills the entire range of tools that I use in the shop. A lot of those tools have been done on Friday videos, but I know that there's so many of those videos out there that sometimes it's hard to go back and sort through them. You can just go to that link, you can check it out, you can find this billet piece for this rotation gauge. I've got the protractor in there. So once the door bars were done, then I had to move on to the back bar. So that back bar I knew was going to tie in those door bars, and I wanted that back bar to be at a really good height to tie in the seatbelt harnesses. So I knew that it had to be just below the shoulder level. I'm not 100% sure on how the seats are going to sit as far as height in the car, how low they'll be, how high they'll be, but I've got a kind of an idea just by sitting in it, and as we all do, you know. Acting like you're driving it and so on and so forth. So I got, you know, the height about right. Had to notch that bar. It was a little bit tricky because you got, you know, one main bar coming down from the hoop. You got the door bar coming up, which has to also be notched. And then it doesn't really fit. You can't really get it down in there. So you kind of gotta Kind of got to beat it into submission. BFH, if you know what I mean. Now that it's in there, I'm not going to tack it up just yet because there's going to be some down bars that are going to be for the places that the 4-link ties into for the suspension, the rear suspension. And so I might have to lift that up a little bit to get those bars in, and I don't want to tack it in there solid. I'll basically figure out where those bars are going to go, make those, and then I can, you know, kind of push down on that back bar to get all the gaps nice and tight, and then I'll tack it all together. Alright guys, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed that. That was a ton of work. A ton of work went into making these tubes for this video. It's probably like 4 days of work just for that little bit of footage you saw. This is very time consuming and tedious work to get everything to fit just like you want it. You know, you don't want to cut corners, you want to take your time in this particular part of the build to get it all exactly right. So, hope you enjoyed that. Hope you can kind of get an idea of what I'm doing as this goes along, kind of wrap your head around what I got going together. As always, thank you for joining me. I will see you guys tomorrow for a Friday video. Go do work, son.